everyone. I'm your first presenter for today and I will be discussing the first, second, and third worlds. After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union, which were wartime allies, entered a Cold War, a state of political tension and rivalry from the mid-1940s to early 1990s. After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union were allies fighting together. But soon after, they stopped being friendly and entered a period called the Cold War, where they competed and faced political tension without direct fighting. Several contemporary works have reviewed this event in the light of post-war events. The Cold War started because the two allies didn't fully trust each other. The US worried about the Soviet Union's communist ideas spreading. The US wanted to stop the Soviet Union from spreading communism to other countries, similar to how a community tries to prevent a harmful rumor from spreading. In a nutshell, the Cold War came forth due to political doubts among wartime allies. The US adopted a policy called containment, meaning it tried to stop the Soviet Union from expanding its influence. For instance, the United States or US has always been wary of Soviet Union's communist leanings, and that's stated its position to contain the latter's expansion. The US helped countries like Greece and Turkey to resist communist influence, showing its commitment to containment.
To continue, I will be discussing the Cold War and the division of the world into two major political fractions. Then, I will also be discussing the Free World concept by Deng Xiaoping in 1974. So during the Cold War, the world was split into two major political fractions, mainly the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc. So the first one was the Eastern Bloc. It is led by the United States and is supported by the capitalists or the democratic countries like United Kingdom, Canada, France, and Italy. While the second one was the Eastern Bloc. It is led by the Soviet Union and is composed of country that is communist or socialist countries such as Albania, Bulgaria, Poland, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Afghanistan. So these two sides represent two contrasting worldviews, which is mainly the capitalism versus the communism, and respectively known as the First World and the Second World countries. Now let us discuss the Three World concept of Deng Xiaoping in 1974. So in 1974, Deng Xiaoping of the Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping of China addresses the United Nations and introduced the Three World concept. So according to him, the First World included the United States and the Soviet Union, both powerful and developed superpowers. The third world was made up of developing countries countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America that face economic and political challenges. Meanwhile, the second world consisted of developed countries that stood between these two groups. So this idea of Deng Xiaoping helped people understand how nations were divided not only by political but also by the level of development of one country.
Bright afternoon, everyone. In this juncture, we'll be discussing about the Brand Report. So this book was published in the 1980s, a major effort to understand and address the growing economic gap between the rich and poor nation, which was initiated by the Independent Commission to International Development Issues. This commission was chaired by Willy Brandt, so the author of the book, the former Chancellor of West Germany, who was known for his strong advocacy for global cooperation and peace. The outcome of the study was compiled and published in what became known as Brand Report. The report provided a comprehensive analysis of the global economy, focusing on the inequalities that existed between industrialized nations of the global north and the developing countries of the global south. it emphasized the need for international collaboration to reduce poverty and promote economic development and ensure a fairer distribution for resources worldwide. The Brand Report proposed several key recommendations including increased financial aid, fairer trade practices, debt relief for developing nations, and the interdependence of nations, stressing that global prosperity could only be achieved if both developed and developing countries work together to solve these shared challenges. So overall, the Brand Report became an influential document in shaping international development policies during the 1980s and beyond. So it encouraged dialogue between nations and raised global awareness about the moral and economic necessity of bridging the gaps between the rich and the poor. And that would be all. Thank you.
Briefly, this report categorized countries in the Northern Hemisphere as comparatively smaller in population and more economically affluent than countries in the Southern Hemisphere, a categorization that gave birth to Brandt Line, an imaginary line that divides the world into the developed North and the developing South. So ang Brandt Line, it was proposed around 1980s. It was proposed to visually represent ang division between sa wealthier and poorer nga nation. Ang wealthier nga nation, more developed na siya nga nation, mostly ara sa Northern Hemisphere. Then ang poorer nation naman, less developed na siya, then mostly ara sa Southern Hemisphere. So ang developed North, mga siya mga countries generally na-locate sa Northern Hemisphere. So it is characterized smaller population nila and they have a higher economic wealth. Example ani nga mga countries is North America, Europe, and Australia. Next is the developing South nga countries. Located na siya mostly sa Southern Hemisphere and characterized by larger population and less economic wealth. So example sa mga countries in developing South is the Africa and South America. So as you can see in the picture, ang Brandt line, muna siyang imaginary line para ma-separate ang North and South. So ang Brandt line, dili siya usually nga straight line. So ga-curve ni siya para ma-include ang Australia sa North despite sa iyang location nga siya sa Southern Hemisphere. So ang Brandt line, dili ni siya permanent. So throughout the years, gabag-ubag-o ni siya ang curve sa line.
Bright day everyone, I am Hazel Aiko from Beetle Ed IA. Today, I will discuss the Global North and the Global South. So these terms are used to describe the global inequality, and they are primarily socioeconomic groupings and gin-base sila sa wealth and economic development sang isa ka country and not on its location sa planet. First, let's discuss the Global North. Global North may refer to countries that are geographically in the Northern Hemisphere or to countries that are developed. So when we say Global North, amo ni siya ang mga wealthy, developed, and mga industrialized nations. So may-ari ni sila high income, advanced technology, stable economies, and also strong political influence like the US, Canada, the Western Europe, and Japan. And this also includes the geographically southern countries like the Australia and New Zealand. Kaya ang Australia and New Zealand are wealthy and mga developed countries. Next is the Global South. So Global South may refer to countries that are geographically in the Southern Hemisphere or to countries that are developing. So, ang Global South naman, nag-refer ni siya sa mga developing and mga less developed nga nations that are still industrializing. So, may-ari naman sila ya lower income, higher poverty rates, and ang mga economies are highly dependent pa sa resource extraction or sa manufacturing para sa North, like the Africa, Latin America, and some of the developing parts ng Asia. The rise and evolution of a capitalist society have created disparities in various spheres of life: social, political, cultural, and economic. These disparities have created gaps between and among nations that are less geographical and more socioeconomic in nature. So, ang division between the North and the South exists because of the rise of capitalism, and it created huge economic disparities among nations. The boundary is not the equator but the historic gap in wealth and power. So generally, ang North nangin rich siya una because of colonialism and early industrialization, leaving the South struggle with the development challenges. So in short, the North means rich and powerful, and the South means developing and less marginalized.
In literatures on globalization and development, the term Global North is used to refer to countries that are economically developed, while the term Global South is used to pertain to countries that are economically struggling. So, this means na ang Global North refers to a rich developed countries like United States, Canada, most of Europe, Japan, ug Australia. So, this country usually have a strong economies, advanced technology, o good living condition for most people. While ang Global South naman refers to a poorer and developing countries. So mostly in Africa, sa Latin America, and part of Asia. So kani siya nga countries often face challenges like poverty, mga weaker economies, o limited access to education or healthcare. In a nutshell, Global South countries are generally oppressed and deprived in terms of human development, having higher birth and death rates, and perceived to be economically dependent on the countries in the Global North, notwithstanding the reality that most of the Global South countries are also rich in both natural and human resources. So, in short, ang Global South countries, as I've said kanina, often face more problems like poverty, poor healthcare, and less access to education. So, they usually have higher birth and death rates and are often seen as gadepende sa mga rich countries like sa Global North for help or trade. So, but even though nga ga-struggle sila, many of this country actually have a lot of natural resources. For example, like oil, minerals, or forest, and many talented people. So, the problem isn't lack of resources, but rather how those resources used or controlled. To be continued, I will be discussing about the rise of the Global South, the Latin America experience. We are going to explore the topic of the Global South and how Latin America fits into this concept. We'll be looking at the unique story of Latin America, understanding its history, the culture, and the challenges it faces as it develops and grows. Many countries in the world are referred to as countries in the Global South. Among the countries commonly associated with the term are countries in Latin America. So to start, it's important to know that many countries around the world are grouped together and referred to as the Global South. This term generally includes countries that are working on improving their economies and overall development. Often, these countries have a history of being colonized or have faced economic disadvantages. The Latin America is a prime example of a region within the Global South, and it offers valuable insights into the issues and opportunities these countries face. Latin America can be geographically constructed as a group of countries in South America. These countries share the same language and cultures. When we say Latin America, we are talking about countries in South America that share similar languages and cultures. They mostly speak Spanish or Portuguese, and they have a lot of the same traditions and ways of life. This shared culture is really important for understanding Latin America. These socio-cultural characteristics are linked with their economic colonizers, Portugal and Spain. Historically, countries in this part of the world have manifested a colorful political scene. Latin America's cultures and society were shaped a lot by its history. A long time ago, countries like Portugal and Spain took control of the region. They brought their languages, religions, and ways of doing things. Latin America has also had a very active political life with lots of different movements and changes. The political scene is characterized by massive and forceful resistance from the grassroots. Across time as well, countries in Latin America have been plagued by poverty and economic instability. Throughout its history, the Latin America has faced significant challenges including the poverty and economic instability. These issues have often sparked resistance and activism from ordinary people seeking to improve their life and societies. So understanding these historical and ongoing challenges is important for appreciating the efforts and progress being made in Latin America to overcome this obstacle and build a better future.
So, bright morning everyone. I am Samuel Alpichi Butcon and I will continue the reporting of Group 1 in the topic of the rise of Global South, the Latin America experience. So in 2016, Morgan Stanley articulated the Latin America plays a role in the acceleration or accelerating global economy in the following year. Brazil and Argentina managed to stand from economic turmoil. This is despite Mexico facing difficulties due to conflict with U.S. policy at that time. Economists highlighted the politics and policy choices remaining significant in determining economic growth in the area. So, in 2016, Latin America experienced importante one of the important economic changes nga nag-aapekto sang ilang role in a global economy. So different country like the Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico faced various challenges. Not only challenges but improvement. So showing how their politics or paano magpadlagan ang ilang government nag-impact sang decisions sang ilang government, so gaka-impakan ang pag-growth sang isa ka country. So first, we have economic recovery. So Brazil and Argentina started to recover from their past economic problems. Their governments made efforts to improve industries and stabilize their economics. So economic recovery means that Brazil and Argentina began to rise. So after sa mga problema nila, ang Brazil and Argentina nagsugod na liwat rise. And after sang experience nga financial struggles, so nag-ano sila liwat, nagtubo naman sila liwat, nag-rise na sila liwat with the help of their government. So their economy slowly improved as they made a better policies and work to fix issues. So like I said, because of the problem nga ila na atubang, so may learning sila dira. So their government makes policies to build slowly improve their economy. So to fix issues like inflation and unemployment. So this recovery gave hope sa mga tao dito sa Brazil and Argentina, and sa tungod nga natagan na sila sang mga obra, so this also gave them hope for a stronger growth and in the coming years. So next is the Mexico struggles. So Mexico faced challenges because of conflicts with US. Policies especially regarding trade and immigration under the new US administration. So the economic challenges of the Mexico, so because of disagreement sa mga policies, wala na sunod kung ano ang gusto sa US during that time. So Mexico's struggles mean that the country faced difficulties because of tensions and policy conflicts with the United States. So disagreements affected trade. So gaapekto sang pagkalakal sa mga product na pasulod kag pagwa sang investments and the country overall economic stability. So nauyog gid, so nagka-problema gid ang Mexico sa ilang economy. So as a result, Mexico growth slowed down, so compared to other nations in the region. So nabehind ang Mexico because of that disagreement in their policies with policy of US nga wala nila na sunod. Next is the political influence. So economists said that political decisions and government policies were very important in shaping how each country economy would grow during that time. So this emphasized the politics and government decision. So it's very important gid ang decision or ang pag-governance sa isa ka country because it shaped the economy, and with the help of the decision, so nag-create sila sang growth sa country, sa dira nga particular nga country. So kung maayo magdesisyon ng isa ka country and maayo ang pamamalakad or pag-govern sa isa ka country, so may possibilities gid nga mag-grow gid ang ina country. So political influence means that the progress of Latin American countries depended greatly on the decisions by their own governments. So like I said, kung ano ang positive be ang pag-govern or okay ang pag-govern sang isa ka nation or isa ka country, so mag-arise gid sa. So economists pointed out that good policies and stable leadership could help improve the economy, while the poor decisions or political conflicts could slow down the growth. So this shows how politics directly affects a nation's economic success. So it's very important how to govern, how to pag-govern sang maayo sa isa country, kay kung hindi mo maayo mag-govern imo nga country, so mas low gid ang ekonomiya, may possibilities nga maglubog ang isa ka country. So that's all. Thank you.